Hi guys, it's Allie. It's Monday. God, what is the date today? September 16th. We're back. Facebook Live. I was actually having a couple technical issues, but I think we're good now. So hopefully this mic is working fine. I guess we'll find out if it's not, if everyone's kind of like can't hear you. Um, so before we get started, we actually have a couple of questions already in the queue. Hi, David. Hi. Uh-oh, I may botch this up. Is it Hajar? Let me know if I pronounce that right. And Miguel, awesome to have you back. So while people are jumping on here, I don't know if you guys are subscribed to the Hipster website, but we had an email go out today with a reminder of 2 weeks left for, ooh, I got a thumbs up. So I guess Hajar. Hopefully that was you. I got your name right. Samuel, awesome to have you. I'm glad you can finally jump on, and we're actually going to hit one of your questions pretty early on. Let's see who else. Hola. Hola back, Miguel. So if you guys are not subscribed to Hipster's website, an email went out today. The Baltimore trip is in 2 weeks. Actually, I fly out in a week and a half, so just under 2 weeks now. So if you haven't already heard, September 27th through 29th, we're having a like operations tour flying by weekend in Baltimore. There's a Philadelphia add-on. These are for the Burr plus turnkey houses. This is different than standard turnkeys. If you aren't familiar with this concept, this might not make any sense to you, but if you've been hearing us talk about it, this is a reminder that we are filling up. We're actually almost full for the trip. We can really only take so many people because we are coordinating shuttles, we're doing all sorts of stuff. To be able to tour everybody around the properties. So just a quick short of the trip is Friday, everyone flies in or gets there, super casual at the hotel. We'll probably go get dinner as a group, really just a chance to meet everyone, meet me, meet the guys behind the properties, just a fun night. And then Saturday, we hit it hard. We will start touring all the properties. We'll go to the companies, the developers' offices. You get to meet all the different players. It just got really dark in here all of a sudden. Let's see. I guess it's okay for light for you guys. Yeah, so all day real estate stuff. We're going to see pre-rehab properties, post-rehab. You can ask any questions you want, meet all the people involved. And then that night, we'll all come back to the hotel. This is the Lord Baltimore Hotel, which is awesome. We have reserved poolside cabanas on the rooftop. It's going to be open bar, the really chance to hang out, enjoy each other's company. We can all talk shop if we want. We don't even have to talk shop if we don't want to. And then we'll all go out to a really nice dinner that night. It's in some really cool place in Baltimore that the name is escaping me right now. And then Sunday will be kind of a free day where a lot of people may want to go back to the developers' offices or see some more properties, ask any questions that you've had time to sleep on. I'll be hanging out then. So yeah, if you don't know about this trip yet, shoot me an email, Allie@hipsterinvestments.com, or just send a message on Facebook. But if you are subscribed to Hipster's website, the email went out today, and I think that may be our last email about this trip because it does start in a week and a half, 2 weeks, and spaces are filling up. We actually have people from this group that are going. Which is super exciting. I'm stoked to meet everybody. So just kind of a reminder while everyone's jumping on. Drew, awesome to see you. Matt, Ian, hello everybody. It looks like my thing is actually scrolling on its own this time. Last week, for some reason, like people would join or ask questions and it wasn't scrolling, so I didn't see them for a second. So that's the Burr plus Turnkey update. Is the trip is happening, super exciting. Reach out with any questions. We can send inventories, put you in touch with people, whatever may work. So I wanted to get started. We actually have two questions. As always, I'm always looking over here because I have our Facebook group pulled up over here. We have two questions already before we even get started. One is from Dimitri: how do you manage vacancies, CapEx, and property management money? For example, if you have 2 to 3 properties, do you put all of the money back? Do you put all the money into the same account and then track what it was used for? Do you track per house or one bucket, in parentheses, savings for all, and then pull out as you need? There's a second part question, but so for that, So basically the question is, how do you manage the money for the way I read this is the income versus the expenses. So when you pay out the expenses, which would even really include the mortgage payment and all that, how do you do it? So if you have multiple properties, do you separate it out per property? How do you, whatever? I think the answer to that question is you can honestly do it however you're most comfortable with it. There's not really a right or wrong. It could be a little bit different if you have properties in an LLC or an entity. Don't quote me on this, but maybe it could be slightly different as far as really making sure to keep those funds separate. And if you, let's say you have 5 properties in an LLC and each one's a different LLC, you may need to separate them out a little more. That'd be a question for your accountant. Hopefully at the point you have an LLC or entities, you have an accountant involved. I can tell you how I do it. So I have multiple properties and I actually have a checking account called rental properties. Obviously I named it that, but all of the rental properties in and out go in and out of that account. So the reason that I group all of my properties together, first of all, I don't have the entities to worry about, so I don't know. So there's not really logistics on that side. But one thing I like, because part of another question is like if you have an unexpected vacancy, and I'll say that specific question in a minute, but like let's say one property has an unexpected vacancy or a bigger repair. One benefit of having multiple rental properties is the other properties can help cover that when something happens to one of them. So earlier this year, I had a really expensive turnover in one because I had terrible tenants, lesson learned, but I was spending so much money out for that property. Obviously, that's money that has to be spent, but income was still coming in from the rest of them. So that was helping me fund that. So when you have multiple properties, you really do have this advantage of they're all helping each other. And so that's why I like to keep them all together versus separating, because first of all, if I have separate ones, that's too many checking accounts for me. But they help each other. And all of my mortgage payments, which are automatic payments, are scheduled to come out of that account. All of the direct deposits from the property managers are going into that account. So all of the income and expenses, money is going in and out of this one account that I conveniently called rental properties. I didn't get very creative on that one. I also have another checking account with that bank. I think it's called Oh Shit Checking. It's kind of like my emergency fund. So I could get more creative on the rental properties account, but I named it rental properties. All properties are in it, in and out, partially to help each other in case there is a extra expense on one of them. There was something I was going to say about that though. Oh, so I would imagine that part of your reason for asking this, actually, well, I guess you asked it. Do you put all the money into the same account and then track what was used for what? Do you track per house or one bucket? So great question. So the way that I read that, because like for tax purposes, for example, each property you're going to file separately. So you need to know the specific income and expenses for that particular property. Well, because I have property management on those properties, they always give me a year-end statement at the end of the year. And I have more than one property manager depending on which property is where, but for one property manager, for example, with multiple properties, the year-end statement that I get breaks it out by address. So each address I can see the total income, the total fees, late fees that maybe were paid, any random income, and then expenses like utilities, repairs, property management fees. What else do I pay on a property? Yeah, so the separation, I assume you might be talking for tax purposes. Obviously, you need to have everything separated out. But my property manager will send me year-end statements broken out by address. So I very rarely, there's a couple expenses that I have to pay with like a check or like credit card. Wait, let me backtrack. So for the most part, the income, like let's say in a month, a property has repair expenses. I very rarely pay that out of pocket. What the property manager will do instead is just withhold that from what they were going to pay me from the income. Because of that, it makes it a lot, I feel like I probably should have clarified that earlier. It makes it a lot more clear because I'm not, like if I were to pay an expense out of pocket right now, I would in my tax, I keep a notepad of tax write-offs for the year or whatever, I would have to specify, oh, this address, I paid this amount, because that would not be included on the property management statement. For example, one of my properties gets termite treatment and I pay that completely separate out of what the property manager pays for me. So in those cases, I have to track it, but otherwise everything's tracked really through the property management company. So then I'm breaking it into different addresses, and I can tell, like when my accountants, they send me a document every year and they're like, okay, tell us all the total numbers. And I can just refer to that year-end statement. And then anything in my notepad that I wrote down that was specific to a property. And where I was going with this before is that I'll breeze through my checking account statement, but it's very rare that there's an expense that comes out of that account that didn't go through the property management company. Because if it's not through the property management company, I probably use my credit card for it anyways, just because I get travel miles that way. But I can at least run through the checking account statement for the year and just make sure that there wasn't anything like directly taken out of that. So that's how I have it organized. And then your second question was, if you use up all your cash saved money for repairs, do you increase the percent you put away for the category that used up all the money? For example, vacancy. If you have some unexpected few months, you used more money than you had, you recover that from future rents. It's totally personal preference. Because my properties aren't in an entity, and again, don't quote me on this because I don't know that it officially matters if they were, but because mine are in my personal name, if something happens and it depletes the money in that account, I just pull from my normal checking accounts. Like I like to keep it separate just to keep it cleaner, but that doesn't mean that I can't cross things over. Or if for some reason I need some kind of injection in cash in another account, I can take it from rental properties, because my rental property money for me, again, because they're not in entities and it's not a business, is the same as my personal money. So really it's the same money, but I just keep it separate just to keep it a little cleaner for tax records and all that kind of stuff. So if you use up all your nest egg, for example, it's totally up to you. You can start putting more aside if you want to. I honestly, the way that I do it is I don't really spend the money that I get from the rental properties. My goal is to just keep building that account up and up. It's kind of like a savings account for me. Then that way, if I need an emergency fund or whatever, I can pull from it. But I'm not really spending the money that I get unless it's for the repairs and stuff. So it's totally up to you. You can increase how much you save. You can kind of whatever. It's totally personal preference. So I really, aside from the possibility that entities may require different things, which again, I don't know, it's really personal preference, but that's how I do it. Everything's in one account, everything in, everything out. Yeah, and very little is outside of that. If it is, I track it so I can report it to my accountants. And then if I need to cross funds from one checking account to another, I do, but otherwise I just kind of leave it alone. So that was one question. Who do we have joined? Elrazone, good to see you again. We got a few. Again, the thing stopped scrolling. Eduardo, Donaldson, Alejandro, and William, thank you guys all for joining. Elrazone says, my new Monday 5 p.m. routine, Alley podcast and happy hour. Hi all. I can't be more stoked to be combined with happy hour. I hope that your happy hour doesn't get too nerdy because you're tuning in for Turnkey Facebook Lives, but I'll take it because I love a good happy hour. Carl, awesome to see you. Oh, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a second. Matt, what's up? Not much. How about you? I have a couple of questions on here, but before I get to these, I want to get one more from the group because I know me and I will forget to do it. Samuel, I think you said you're on here, right? I have your question, so let's do that one. So Samuel asked, actually 3 questions. So first question, what type of insurance do you need for a turnkey? You're closing on a property in Dayton and going through this process of getting quotes. Great question. So your insurance, it's really not going to be any different than what you would need on a rental property. was thinking about my answer. So there's a couple things. So you have to have normal homeowners insurance, period. And you want to talk to the different insurance people because you want to let them know this is not your primary home. This is an investment property. I'm pretty sure that when I did that, I don't think anything really changed with my policy because my very first rental property was originally my primary home, and I took a job transfer to California during the 2008 crash, so I wasn't going to be selling that house anytime soon. So I converted it into a rental property, and so I called my insurance and said, hey, keeping the house, but it's going to be a rental property. And I really don't think it changed the policy, but it was good for them to know. There are two types of homeowners insurance, and I may not have the words on these right. This is not totally my wheelhouse, but there is the option of getting the replacement cost or the actual cost. And what those two mean is, let's say your rental property burns to the ground. If you have insurance for actual cost, they are going to pay you out the amount that that property was worth. I don't know why I just blanked on that word. So let's say your $100,000 property burns to the ground, they're going to write you a check for $100,000. Replacement cost insurance is actually going to pay you the amount that it would cost to replace the property. So let's say you bought this property for $100,000. Well, that's not quite the right wording, but basically if your house burns to the ground, it's going to cost more to completely replace the house because then they have to pay you out for the value, but they also need to rebuild the house. So that's rebuilding it. That's literally replacing the property with another one. So actual cost, replacement cost or value, some kind of terms like that. Actual cost is always going to be cheaper because that's a cheaper payout for them to only have to pay you that amount versus to actually replace the house. For your primary home, and I am not an insurance agent, I'm not super good at it, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But I find that more people, like with your primary home, there's an emotional attachment. So it would make sense why you'd want to replace it, because if the house you live in burns down, you might want to keep living there or live in that same spot. So then the replacement value would actually cover the cost to rebuild a house there. In investment properties, you may not be so attached to. So you may want to just do the actual cost because if the thing burns down, you could just get paid out for it and go buy other investment properties. Like you may not have that same attachment. And actual cost insurance is cheaper. So that's completely up to you. There's really no wrong way to go with that. But it is basic just homeowners insurance, just like you would get on any other property. My insurance company, I use USAA, and if you don't have military ties, you're not able to use them because they deal with military families, but they actually don't have an actual cost insurance option. So all of mine are under replacement cost, it does cost me more. And honestly, I could care less about replacing them if something happens, but it's the only option through them, and I'm obsessed with that company. If anyone on here qualifies for USAA and you're not using it, you're missing out. Like, unbelievable. I could go on and on about why they're fantastic. So all of mine are replacement, but that's only because it was the only option for me. On top of so you have to have homeowners insurance. As you're getting quotes, this is the part I don't know because I've had USA for so long and they're so fantastic. I don't know necessarily how to gauge which company or quote is going to be better because I can only imagine that maybe the cheapest quote's not the best option, because the trick with an insurance company is that you want one who's actually going to pay you out should something happen. I've heard of insurance horror stories, I'm sure everybody has, and I actually heard about one on a turnkey. I think this was in Chicago. This was a handful of years ago, and this property, it had a black cloud around it. Unbelievable. Just like story after story of things happening. It was a black cloud property. It was whatever, but the insurance company didn't pay out when it seemed very obvious that they should. So that part I don't know as far as getting the quotes. Maybe, I don't know if you can get like recommendations from other investors. Maybe actually, if anybody on here owns investment properties, Samuel, I'll call you Sam now. Cool. If anyone on here owns investment properties, or even your primary home for that matter, if you're willing to throw in the name of what company you use, if you like them, or if you have horror stories of who not to use, maybe we can get some recommendations from the group. But maybe this would be a good question to get posted on the group, is who's everyone used for insurance and who likes who, because like I said, I can't imagine that the cheapest quote is going to be your best one, because whatever you're paying is not going to matter if they don't pay you out if they need to. And that, I don't know, maybe reviews online or something. So the only other insurance with a turnkey, which again is the same as insurance for any rental property, is the option for umbrella insurance. So earlier when I was talking about money, I was talking about whether my properties were in an LLC or an entity or not. If they're not, you should really consider an umbrella insurance policy, because an umbrella insurance policy is going to cover the liability of things. So if a tenant, you should always have your tenants have renter's insurance themselves. But if somebody falls down the steps at the whatever and sues you, that's where the umbrella insurance kicks in, much like it would with an LLC. Like, that's where your liability coverage is going to be. And the umbrella insurance policies are super cheap. I pay like $25 a month or something to cover all of my possessions. And when I got it for the rental properties, it even covers like my car, my whatever. So it's a really cheap policy, usually great coverage. I think mine has $1 million liability coverage or something. You can get one with $2 million. So that's the only additional insurance that you would want to be thinking about for a turnkey or any rental property. But I recommend it. If you're not in an entity, you definitely want that umbrella insurance policy. Okay, Sam's second question. It seems like it can take a long time to scale up with turnkeys given the startup costs and the fact that the cash flow is 300-ish or so per house. How do you scale up? The famous question. It depends with everybody. Sam, if you were, or I feel like you were around when Drew put out his article about how he's been scaling with creative financing options. So creative financing is one way. I did, which kind of leads to your question number 3, I did partnering on some that helped me scale. The other option is this BRRRR plus turnkey model, because then you are actually getting the forced appreciation, which means you can get more of your money back from the deal, and that money you can use to put into future deals. So it's that snowball, like the famous real estate investing thing, idea. I shouldn't say that thing, is kind of vague. Yeah. So I don't think that was a very helpful answer, but it's going to be a different answer for everybody. It just depends on what resources. Like, this is really where it talks about getting creative. And one thing I'll say about like the forced appreciation that you usually can't get from standard turnkeys that you can get on the value add or BRRRR models is, yeah, for the most part you can't get it. But like when I bought a lot of my turnkeys in Atlanta, I knew the market was about to boom, and since then all of my turnkeys have doubled and tripled in value. That's not scheduled to happen right now. We're too high up in the cycle, but for me, that was actually one way to force appreciation, was through the market. So we're super limited on when we can do that, because it depends on the real estate market itself and the cycles that the cities and the whole economy is in. So it's not an option right now, but when it becomes an option, if we were to hit another crash state or whatever, just kind of keeping in mind that that is one way to get that appreciation. Because one of my properties later on, it was only maybe I think it was like 2 years later, I actually did a cash out refinance on it, because I had originally got it with private money, and it was an adjustable rate mortgage, and the arm was about to switch. So I refied it into a fixed loan, but when I did it, the value had already doubled. So I was able to pull all of that money back out. I could use that for more investing. So something to think about. Again, not applicable right now, but it really is. It's harder with turnkeys, not gonna lie. That's the major con to turnkeys, is that you're gonna be paying roughly market value for them. But if you have the finances or whatever to do the BRRRR plus turnkey model, that's one option out of this. Drew's article, if you haven't seen it, I can't remember what date we said it was. It's in the posts somewhere. We can find that article for you. But so creative financing is another option, partnering. And so your question number 3, speaking of partnering, when working with a business partner, how do you ensure that there's enough meat on the bone, aka enough cash flow to split between 2 people? It's really just about running the numbers. And I'll say that with the cash flow margins being lower Oops, I thought I hit my headset off. With the cash flow margins being lower now because prices are so high, just across the board, just our general economy, the margins aren't going to be as good. When I started using my partner, we were doing cash flow splits. We still do it, but this was when I think cap rates were at like 14% or something. I mean, the price to rent ratios were stupid. The very first turnkey I got was $55,000 for a great house. You can't get that now. And it was renting for $975 a month. So there was so much cash flow margin. It was easy for me, an investor, to split that and it'd still be a good deal. Now with the cash flow margin so much smaller, I don't know what those splits are going to look like, but the key is really just to run the cash flow equations, the cash flow numbers, and see what that would look like. Like if you do a 50-50 split, like me and my partner do, if you're only making 200 total, so 100 a piece, and then, like you just kind of have to weigh out if it's worth it and really just kind of look at what all the partners are bringing to the table to see if that's worth it, because maybe the cash flow being less is fine because it gets you X, Y, or Z other advantages. So hopefully those answered your questions. Okay, Sam, you saw that article. Cool. Oh, Drew, there we go. Let's see. We're using Fremont Insurance for 12 of them. I haven't heard of Fremont. Also heard good things about Arcana, but haven't used them. Awesome. Drew, thank you for sharing that. I haven't heard of either of those companies. And oh, we got a couple more. Farmers Insurance. Elrazone, is that, have you had a good experience with them so far? I know they're more of a known name, so I don't know how that ties in or how they've been. Cool. Glad those answered your questions. I just saw thanks for answering. You're very welcome. Let me go backwards here because I think there were some questions up here. Got the WhatsApp one. David, is this a one-time trip or are you planning to do it again in the future? So you're talking about the Burr plus Turnkey flying by trip to Baltimore in, keep looking at my calendar, a week and a half, 2 weeks, so September 27th through 29th. As of right now, it's the only one on the calendar. I can't for the life of me imagine that this is going to be the only one they do. The only thing I don't know is how many of them I'll be on. So I'll actually be at this one. This one, somebody asked me a question. Was it an email recently? Something about my due diligence about this particular provider. And I responded to that person saying why I am in support of these properties, of this company. I've known the guy for years. I've spoken with him several times, but I am actually doing part of my due diligence on this company myself on this trip. I have every reason under the sun to believe that these are good deals. Like I said, I've known this guy who runs them and I trust him a lot. We've had several conversations. I was just on the phone with him, I think last week or something, but I haven't seen the properties myself. So this is my intro trip to this as well, which is even more exciting. So the answer to your question is I seriously doubt it's going to be a one-time trip, but there are no other trips scheduled right now, and I don't know how many of them I'll actually be on. Not to say that, me being there matters, but I kind of really want to meet everybody. So if you have a chance to come on this one, and the other thing too, always keep in mind, this is at this developer who's been doing this long enough to know what he's doing, which is good. And because I've actually talked to some turnkey people recently that just kind of started, I'm like, ooh, get a couple of years under your belt and then circle back, because I don't want to. It's great when people get started, but I kind of don't want to bring people to them before it's kind of a proven thing. So this guy's been doing this long enough for it to be a proven thing, but he's just now really marketing outside of word of mouth. Like everyone who's been buying these properties so far, he's had one-on-one connections with somehow. So this is an amazing time to get in on this. And this goes for any turnkey, standard turnkeys, anything. When the sellers are earlier in the game and motivated and they haven't outgrown themselves yet, it's like the most phenomenal time ever, because the cash flow is higher, they are motivated, they are aiming to please, because they're also trying to prove to us, the people who are supporting this, that they're worth supporting. So they have reason to need to prove themselves. How great for an investor, because if you have a seller who's trying to prove himself and prove everything, he's going to be working really hard to support you and your investment. So that's my little shtick on get in early, but I'm sure there'll be future trips. I don't know how many I'll be on or how often they'll happen. I'm sure there probably won't be one before the end of the year, unless for some reason this becomes such a popular thing that maybe we bust one out in like December or something before the holidays. But yeah, hard to say at this point. Oh, going back to the money in the bank, Drew, each entity has to have its own accounts. I was kind of thinking that. So that was Dimitri's question about how to organize the money, income and expenses if you have several properties. I was saying for me, all of my properties go in and out of one account because mine are under my personal name. And I had said that I wasn't sure how entities worked, like if each property is in a different entity or an LLC, if those have to be separate accounts. And Drew said, yes, they do, which I was kind of thinking. And that also probably depends on like if all your properties are under one LLC name or one entity name, that may be different, but really more than anything, I would make sure you're working with an investor-friendly accountant, because not only can they give you the advice or information about starting an LLC in the first place, as far as entities, like my accountants were my first stop when I said, hey, I have rental properties now, I assume I should do an LLC, and they were able to look at everything, they were like, ooh, yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. And that was for my case in particular. Like your accountants more than anyone know your particular financial situation and just your overall portfolio situation. So they can advise you on LLCs or staying personal name or umbrella insurance policies or whatever, in addition to giving you the instructions if you do have the entities and LLCs, depending how those are set up. I keep saying entities and LLCs. LLC is an entity, but most people have LLCs, but I want to say entity just in case somebody has an S Corp or something different. But your accountant should also, it really is a question I would always confirm with your accountant, like, hey, is it cool if I keep all the money in one account? How do you recommend I do it? Where am I at risk for commingling funds? Can I cross over different accounts? All that. So despite what we all say on here, double check with your accountant. And if you are on here buying rental properties and you don't have an accountant yet, I'd get one, because one of the biggest things with rental properties is the tax benefits. And there are so many rules and loopholes and all sorts of stuff, and they're constantly changing. So not only do you need an accountant, but you need an real estate investor-friendly accountant who does this all the time. Like my accountants, they have big names like on Bigger Pockets and Motley Fool and all that, and this is all they do. They only deal with real estate investors. So they're like the first people to know when the laws are changing, when the little intricacies that none of us would be able to figure out happen. I remember when I first started buying rental properties, I tried to do the TurboTax rental property version or whatever, and this was when I just had my one rental property, the one that I had lived in previously, and I was determined I was going to make this TurboTax thing work. Never happened. Like, and I pay my accountants quite a bit, but they always get me so much more back. It's absurd. So that's my little tangent off about accountants. So get an accountant and double check with them. And you could even actually, I'm looking at the insurance recommendations. They may even have recommendations for good insurance companies, because if they deal with a lot of real estate investors, there's a good chance that they're probably familiar with the insurance situation on them. So they may know, what companies to stay away from, what companies are treating their clients really well, all that kind of stuff. Okay, going back through Sam's stuff, we got that. David, thank you. You're very welcome. Glad that helped. Let's see, Drew. If the LLCs don't have their own accounts, the IRS will flag it as commingling. Oh, you said, I love that word. I'm glad you said it too. Big no-no. Yes, I absolutely agree. So everyone should double check with their accountants. I mean, if you are to the point where you formed an LLC, hopefully you've done that with an accountant on your payroll at some point. Manpreet, thank you for joining. Drew, shout out, I love that. Shout out to Wealth Ability, Tom Wheelwright. He's an awesome REI CPA. Where is he based out of, and does he take virtual clients? That would be awesome. I know that my accountants, I use Amanda Hahn and Matt McFarland. They're married. Amanda Hahn writes for Bigger Pockets. Her and I were both just recently writing for Motley Fool's new real estate investing website. They are just drop dead fantastic, but last I knew they weren't taking new people. So and if Drew's recommending this guy, I totally believe that's a good recommendation. So Drew, let us know if, I assume he works virtual for anyone not located to wherever he is. Okay, so what do you guys have? I think that covers, shoot me some questions. I think that covers what we had on the group post. I'm going to refresh and make sure we're good there. I know there's a delay on the live. Mara, thank you for joining. Let's see. I'm also making sure I haven't missed anything. I'm actually starting to, I think I've pinpointed one of the problems with me seeing comments on, wait, is this true? Because like I think it was this morning, I just went through some of the posts and I didn't even get an alert. Like Drew, was it you that posted about the Bernie Sanders thing on Twitter? Like I didn't even get a notice that that post had come through. So I don't know if it's like if I'm logged in as hipster or myself, or maybe something's whatever. But I'm glad I just thought of that because I was actually going to respond to it here. If you guys didn't see, Drew had put up there was a tweet. I was about to say a Twitter. Let's say a tweet from Bernie Sanders that said, I'm actually clicking on it. Landlords should not be able to simply raise rents due to any level they want, anytime they want. And I'm very much with Drew. I bring this up absolutely not to bring up political conversations. I'm sure we have people on every side of the equation in this group, and that is, did I even put it in the rules of the group, like no political debates, to put it nicely. But what I love about you posting this, Drew, is California just passed the rent control law about, and I'm still kind of reading up on it to make sure I understand what's going on, but basically they're implementing statewide rent control. And I was reading an article on it last night that it doesn't really affect me because the one property I own in California is already rent controlled under Los Angeles, and we're the cap on that was 3% each year, but they just raised it to 4%. But the statewide cap does 5%. But then I was reading an article about, it seems like it doesn't pertain to mom and pop owned single family houses. It seems like it's the bigger condo, something or another. I don't know what all the logistics are. I haven't, again, really cared because it doesn't impact me much. But it did put in, I've started kind of wondering about this myself, and it's like, I saw this landlord should not be able to simply raise rents to any level they want, anytime they want. And I will say, before I say this, I'm not pro or against Bernie. This has nothing to do with Bernie being the person to say this, just going off the quote completely by itself. My opinion, I think you guys kind of mentioned this in some of the comments, and some of the Twitter comments mentioned this also, is like, as far as I know, landlords can't just raise it to whatever they want. I know there's a situation in California, like I'm right next to Marina Del Rey, and most of the Marina Del Rey stuff is not rent controlled. And so I constantly hear horror stories of people's rents being doubled on them in a year, and it's kicking them out. And then there's questions about if the rents are going so high, like, is that contributing to homelessness? Because then people can't, there's all this drama about it. But just based on this quote, landlords should not be able, let's see, landlords should not be able to simply raise rents to any level they want, anytime they want. I never knew that they could, because in my mind, and I think a lot of people brought this up, is supply and demand. Like a landlord can't just ask any amount in rent, because if it's not somewhat in line with market value, they're not going to get any tenants to pay it. And this is kind of, if you read posts and stuff from brand new investors, this is something they don't totally understand, because in the commercial space, if you're going to go invest in a commercial property, the value of the property is solely based on the income that that property is bringing in. So for instance, if you want to do a value add or whatever, like you can control the worth of that property by controlling the rents. So if you want to ask more in rent and you're able to get that, then that's going to increase the value of the property. Residential properties, meaning units, single through 1 through 4 unit buildings, Single family houses, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, those are considered residential. And residential properties, unlike commercial, the value of the property is not based on the income. It's solely based on market value, which means you can't go buy a single family house and ask whatever you want for in rent. Like I hear a lot of people, brand new investors in California saying, oh, well, if I go buy this property, the current rent doesn't allow me to cash flow, but if I raise the rent to X amount, then I'll be cash flowing. And they're saying like X amount is some substantially higher. And it's like, wait a minute. That's not quite how that works. Like you can't ask more than market value. And so what people, they're looking at it backwards. They're not realizing that residential properties in California, you're just not going to cash flow. Like people have it in their heads that they're going to be able to make it cash flow. That's not how that works. And where it is, it can be with commercial. But so back to this quote, landlords should not be able to simply raise rents to any level they want, anytime they want. I think I see where he's coming from, but that's not how that works anyways. Like they can't do that. But the thing like in Los Angeles, for example, just being the example that I know of, the people in Marina del Rey that were literally doubling the rent on the tenants, they can do that because it's of the supply and demand. Like that's the thing is like when the California landlords raise their rent so high, people are still renting. I think it's starting to kind of calm down now. Like I think it's starting to get a little more contained, but that's the thing is they're asking rents that are viable. And so if you were anywhere else, or if that wasn't the case where people were going to keep doing it, you can't just keep raising it because then you'll never get a tenant. So that's my feedback on that post. Drew, again, thanks for sharing it. And it is interesting because it was perfect. And he might control thing that just went through in California, but I also don't know if I don't know if other states, is it just a California thing that's so ridiculous about rent control? Because they've just been notorious forever for like being able to, because you can do that in California. I don't know other states how well you can do that. Maybe New York City, maybe. Let's see, we got a couple of comments. Drew, so Tom Wheelwright, so we were talking about CPA recommendations, and Drew recommended Tom Wheelwright from Wealthability. He's based in Phoenix. He definitely does non-local clients. They have a whole network of CPAs. So if you are an investor and you're looking for a real estate friendly accountant, this is a great recommendation from Drew. I don't know who this person is, so I can't vouch, but I trust Drew. So that would always be worth a call. And yeah, most accountants now can do virtual. They don't necessarily need to be based in the state that you're in. Obviously, it's helpful if you're local because then they know your state rules, but it really doesn't matter. My accountants do my Georgia properties just fine, all that kind of stuff. Matt, you and the tenant have a contract as well, and the rent price is in the contract, unless, of course, your lease states that you can raise the rent. Yeah, and this is really going to depend on what state you're in. Los Angeles, there's very explicit information about whether or not your rent can be raised. Like out here, prior to all this new stuff, if you are renting a property that was built prior to 1978, you're going to be rent controlled, and the lease states what that means. Like your rent can only go up 3%. If it's built after 1978, you're not going to be under rent control unless whatever. The new statewide thing, I don't know exactly how that's going to work. There is a thing with the new statewide one, and this has come up in conversation, is the way that the rent control works now is, so I'm actually in my place now. I've been here for 6.5 years, and part of the reason that I'm still here is because I'm grandfathered in under rent control right by the beach. If I were to leave this place now, I'm done for this area because rents have gone up so much around me, but I'm grandfathered in. Now, if I leave this place, the new tenant they can ask market value. They can increase everything. So that's actually called vacancy control. So there have been laws to be known where, like, if I'm paying X amount now and I move out and leave and they bring in a new tenant, that tenant can only be asked to pay so much more than I'm paying. But I haven't really heard of any real life practical applications of that, but I know that's one of the conversations is what about vacancy control? But as of right now, all the California rules, I believe, are not including vacancy control. So if a tenant leaves, then they can kick it back up to market value, which is kind of how it's been for a while. Elrazone, I always check with Renometer. Yeah, that's good. There's also ah, wha- um, there's another program that I've used that me and a lot of my team members use. Obviously, I don't use it that much because I can't think of the name of it. Um, I'll find it and I'll let you guys know. But yeah, double checking rents everywhere. David, do you buy holiday gifts, i.e. Christmas, New Year, etc., for your tenants for taking good care of your properties? That is a really awesome question. I don't currently, mostly because, well, no. I was like, wait, I feel like maybe I did that one time before because when I left Atlanta and my primary home became a rental property, I had this amazing tenant. And while I actually managed her myself from 2,200 miles away because she was so good, while I was looking for a property manager. And it seemed, this was years ago, it seems like maybe I don't know that I ever did get her anything for Christmas, but if I didn't do it, I was thinking about it because I really wanted her to stay. She was like a dream. One reason that I don't do it is I'm so far removed from my tenants that I really don't. I don't even know most of their names. One woman, I unfortunately know her name a lot because she's very bossy, and I'm constantly getting repair requests from her. But otherwise, I don't have relationships with these people, at least on the turnkey side. So the property that I have local to me here, I am closer to those people. And like I've sat and had wine with one of them. Like I have really, really good relationships with them primarily because I'm the landlord and I want really good relationships, but this is a much higher end property. So I'm not slumlording, I'm not whatever, like I really want relationships with these people. Um, but even them, actually, I've never gotten a Christmas present, but what I do for them in particular is I really, I consider this to be a 50-50 thing where I'm not going to give everything and bend over backwards if they're not meeting me in the middle, but I'm really going to go out of my way. Like if they have a repair, like sure, like even if it's not required or we have to do it, like I want to get it done because I want to thank them basically for treating my property well, treating me well, being so easy to work with. I don't want to say reward that, but I want to meet them in the middle with that. For instance, one of these units, it's really lacking storage space, and there's like this little concrete walkway that leads to the back unit, but it's open right now. Like he's storing some of his weights, but there's a gate on the backside and a wall. And so we've actually been talking about, I'm happy to, and this is a good thing for the property anyways, but continue that fence on. So essentially it creates them a storage area, and there would be like a gate right there. And because I love them so much as tenants, like I want to make that accommodation. And we were talking about, maybe splitting the cost 50-50, but really, I really try, if I have good people, and this goes for my business too, my employees, I think every day what I would do without them, and it wouldn't be anything good. Like, so for Christmas, I give them bonuses. I really try and treat them well over the year and really try and make it very obvious how thankful I am for them. For my high-end tenants, which are the non-turnkey tenants, the people who I actually manage and landlord, I have never given them gifts, but I really do try and make a concerted effort to be awesome for them so they're motivated to continue being awesome for me. For my turnkey people, I really don't even know their names. I I don't even know them well enough to know that I'd want to reward them. I mean, I don't know. I'm so much less emotionally involved in them that I've never done that. But it's something. If you have a turnkey, you could talk to your property management company. If you have a tenant that really stands out, that really makes your life easier, it couldn't hurt. I'm learning a lot about landlording myself because I've had the turnkeys with the property managers, but now with this local property, I had a tenant last year that I really thought she was going to be in there for 30 years. And so I don't want to say I've been over backwards to the point of being burdened by any means, but I really put a lot of emotional stake in her. And her job situation ended up changing, and she left after a year. And I just kind of sat back and I was like, wow, okay, so this is what they mean about not getting emotionally attached. So, you just, even the best tenants, you don't know how long they're going to support you. Now I'm just going on a ramble, but the answer to your question is you totally could. I don't really worry about it too much, but I really, really, really do try and take care of the tenants who are taking care of me and my property. So that's huge for me. Going back to the tweet, if anyone were referring to, Drew had shared the Bernie Sanders tweet that said landlords should not be able to simply raise rents to any level they want, anytime they want. Drew said the other side of that tweet was the replies. Advocates for getting rid of landlords, making investment ownership illegal, wanting the government to own all property. Obviously, none of us would want that. As I was reading that, I was like, ooh. So no, that'd be bad. And then Matt saw that. Matt, if you have a good tenant, what kind of landlord would raise it anyway? Good tenants are sometimes hard to come by. So that's actually interesting. Yes, you are absolutely right. So when I moved to, a funny story about this actually. When I moved to California, let's see. I think I had my property, obviously, that I had converted into a rental property, and I did not have the turnkeys yet. I know what it was. So I was like, wait, something about this timeline's not working. So I moved to California. I had an immediate rental property because it was a house I used to live in. So I started with that one. Before I moved to where I'm living now, I was renting a like in-law suite in someone's house. So that was a very not personal relationship, but like it wasn't like I wasn't living in an apartment building. So there was no issues of whether they were going to raise my rent or not. Like they just got a flat amount and that was it. After that, I lived in another place that actually she never did raise my rent. So by that time, I had started investing in turnkeys. So now I had my own rental properties and I had been in a couple of rental situations myself. And in my head, I was saying the very same thing, is if my tenants are treating the property well, they're going really well, I don't want to raise the rent. Like I want them to stay there because in the long run, that's going to behoove me more by, keeping the long-term tenant versus raising it $25 a month or whatever it's going to be. So then I move into where I live now in Venice Beach. And the very first year that I was here, I got a note on my door that said, hey, FYI, coming up on the year mark, FYI, your rent's going to get raised 3%. And I looked at that and I was like, what landlord would raise rent? I was a perfect tenant. I didn't even have repair stuff. I paid rent on time. I was the flawless tenant. And I was like, well, why would you raise the rent on that? Like, I would never do that to my tenants because I want, I'll do it occasionally, but not like first year and 3%. Like, my God. And 3% of rent in Venice Beach is notable. And so I actually asked the property manager, I think, was it him I asked? And I said, like, what gives? Like, I'm a phenomenal tenant. Like, why would a landlord risk getting rid of somebody all for however many dollars a month? And what I didn't know about Venice Beach at that time is that the demand for Venice Beach is so high that he can do whatever he wants. Like, honestly, if I wasn't under rent control and he raised it 5%, there's probably not much I can do about it anyways, because if I were to leave this place right now, it would cost me more than 5% more to get an equivalent place or cheaper. So moving into somewhere like Venice Beach, and I don't know how many California, like Southern California, Los Angeles is like this for the most part anyways, but especially the West Side beach locations, the landlords have the leverage because it's not going to hurt them for you to leave because you're pouting over 3% or 5% or whatever, because they can fill it for so much higher. Like the guy in the unit next to me, he has been here since the early 70s, I think, and he's literally paying the same amount that I am. Like, it's so cheap for him for what he has because he's been here for 35, 37 years, 38 years or something. But the rent can't get raised because the landlord can't raise it more than what rent control's allowing. So the landlord is getting screwed. But I guarantee you, if he left there, the landlord could at least triple the rent, if not quadruple. Like it's that absurd. So, Matt, I'm 100% with you until I move to somewhere like Venice Beach where everything about it changes. With that said, though, this duplex I own in Venice Beach, it's 2 units, and the tenants in there, we were just talking about tenant relationships, are so phenomenal for me that I didn't raise either of their rents the first year. Actually, one's coming up on their 1 year mark now, or like in a couple of weeks or something. I have no interest in raising their rent because I at least want to give them the first year as like a thank you. And this goes back to this whole like give 50-50, give and take type of thing. They take care of me, I take care of them. If they were more like thorns in my side or annoying in any way or constantly costing me stuff in repairs, hike it up. But I am with you still, and I might be losing money by doing it because I can do it in Venice Beach. I can raise it and no one's going to go anywhere. But I don't have the heart to do that for my tenants. I really do want the longer term relationship. I would love for them to be there for, well, I was about to say for 20 years, knock on wood, because then I'd be screwed for how much I could be getting. But yeah, so yeah, it's I 100% agree with you. But there are cases, yeah, crazy. Tell me about it. It took me a minute. I was actually kind of offended when they were raising my rent. I was like, I would never do this to my people, but it turns out it's actually like it's a culture here. And that really is part of why California, I'm sure, is implementing a statewide ban. Like that's how much of a culture rent raising is that it's, I don't know. This is a whole different debate about how much of the homelessness comes from raising rents. It's a whole different conversation. I have to think more and drink some wine over. But raising rent, at least in Southern California, I would imagine in the big places, San Francisco, LA, it's a culture to raise rent, which is nothing I ever grew up with or learned. The house you had and then rented when you moved, did you still have a mortgage on it? And if so, did you have to refinance? I did not. I had lived in the house. Actually, I didn't live in the house very long. Let's see. I think I moved maybe about a year and a half after I closed on the house. And I can't remember what the rule is. Like if you claim something as a primary house, I always thought it was 2 years, but for some reason I didn't have any problems with it. I don't remember how that all worked, but no, I didn't have to refinance. I kept the exact same mortgage, everything. The only thing that really switched was just letting insurance know that it was a rental property now, and even that, it didn't change any of my rates or anything. Yes, I don't want to be that kind of landlord to people. I'm with you. Like I assume that if I own something in the heart of Venice Beach, you know, here's another thing that it depends on, and I was actually looking, I can see out my window, there is well, I don't want to describe where I live too well, because, I mean, I would assume you guys are all fine, but I think these videos end up on YouTube. I end up with like random strangers outside my place. But there's a building over there that has a unit that is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a loft. It's this really odd setup where it's a nice apartment, but it's almost too nice for Venice Beach. Venice Beach, it's gritty and grungy here. It's too nice for that because really, who's going to want a 3-bedroom other than a family? And kids don't really live in Venice Beach. There's one right across from me, but for the most part, kids don't live here. 3 roommates, maybe. That's kind of what they usually end up with. But then on the other hand, it's not so nice that it can really justify it's a really hard unit to rent because it's in this weird middle ground. And so being in Venice Beach, if I was the landlord on that property, the minute I got good tenants in there, I would probably not raise the rent. And there's no rent control in that unit because it was built after. So I think I had friends living there for a while, and I think the first time they raised it maybe 4% or something. But I would be careful in that case because when that unit goes vacant, it's vacant for like months before they find, because it is such an odd, unique, the rentability is not good on it. But like where I live, you could rent that in the snap of a finger. So it makes sense to raise it on me. It all goes back to like how hard is it to rent the place that you have and kind of weigh that out with whether it's worth risking kicking those people or those people leaving or not. So yeah, we've kind of beat that one to the ground. Tara, awesome to see you. I know we haven't, I'll actually give you how about I give you a pitch right here, which I'm going to try and find, I cannot, here we go. So if you guys don't know, we actually had put this in, let's see, there was a post earlier asking for property management company recommendations, and I want to say with all of this, my intention is not suddenly for the Turnkey rental properties group to become a haven of asking for a million recommendations, because I do want to keep it turnkey specific, because there are, well, partially so it can be turnkey specific because it's the whole point, but also there are other groups where you can talk more broadly. And one of them, which I actually belong to, which Tara runs, is it property? I'm going to click on it. It's called Landlords, Real Estate Investors, and Property Managers. Is it Hub after that? I haven't actually clicked on it. If you guys go to the post from September 12th asking about Toledo, Ohio, there's a link to Tara's group in there. And Tara has built this group huge. It's run by, Spark Rental is behind it. We actually have a blog that's going to be coming out from Spark Rental on Hipster's website. So we actually just, Tara and I just kind of connected. I started following her group. She found the Turnkey group. We haven't even talked a whole heck of a lot, but I've since started talking to the Spark Rental folks who work with her. She actually introduced me to them. I honestly, Tara, don't know much about Spark. But we've talked on the phone briefly, and we're putting out a really cool article that they wrote for us. And I am completely blanking. It's in my inbox right now. We'll be posting it, and I'll post it on the group when it comes out. So Tara, super stoked to see you on the live, and thanks for supporting us. I'm happy to support your group. If anyone on here is wanting to talk about anything real estate investing that is not turnkey related, because if it's turnkey related, stay here. Just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding, but but if it's something outside of turnkeys, absolutely check out Tara's group. And there is a link on the Toledo, Ohio post from September 12th that you can find from Tara. Yeah, so anyways, slight sidebar there. Yep, Hub. Okay, cool. We got a lot quick. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to run through what comments are on here, and then we're going to wrap up for today. El Razone, SoCal is just a different animal. Tell me about it. LA Long Beach had a rent control in the past few years, but not Orange County. I have friends who are renters and their rent gets raised every year. Yes, absolutely. So that statewide thing coming in is Tara, hi, and the wave emoji. Drew just asked to join that one today. Drew, you're going to be awesome for that group. There's so much talk on that group. I mean, it's all good stuff, but it's a very, very active group. So everyone tell your friends to come make the Turnkey group that exciting. Obviously, we're a little more niche, but I learn good things every day from that group. So Tara can send it. Cool. Matt would love to join. Tara, if you want to put the link in this comment box, then everyone who hears this, don't put it on a post in the group, just because I don't want people to start thinking they can, I mean, you're approved, but I want everyone thinking that they can just start promoting whatever. But put it in the comments in this section so everyone that has heard me with my shtick for your group can link to it. Terry, got quite a few people interested. Feel free to connect with them. Tara, awesome. I really enjoy everything you do. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sam, also want to recommend that everyone buys Allie's book. Hey, thanks. That's cool. I literally have it side by side as I go over the documents closing my first turnkey. Thank you for creating that resource. You're very welcome, and I really appreciate that feedback. So Sam is referring to our Turnkey Rental Properties 101 ebook. Let's see, Turnkey Rental Properties 101, the definitive guide to buying hands-off rental properties. And you guys have heard my spiel on not calling turnkeys hands-off anymore, so you can tell that I wrote this ebook little prior to that. But it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a 101 into all of the basics about turnkeys. Who are all the different players? What about the markets? What about due diligence? What about all of that kind of stuff? I will get with my folks and see if I can offer you guys some kind of discount on it. I will put in I'll give you the link to it now just so you have it. I don't even know the link to my own ebook. Turnkey prop. I don't know anyone have the link for my own? How about I give you guys the Amazon link because I need more reviews. There's a link on the website too, except I don't know what that link is. Okay, so Tara, awesome. So everyone on here, if you were listening to that little spiel, Tara put her group on there. Thanks for the shout out. You're very welcome. Sam, you're welcome. Matt, sounds like I need to buy your book. I mean, I guess. Please go ahead and post the link to your book. So there's the Amazon link. Again, you can find it if you just go to Hipster's website. I think we're actually about to update the website this week. We're going to have some new resources and all that stuff, but there is a link to the ebook on there. Same price on Amazon and the website. So no difference there, but it would be awesome, like super killer awesome if you guys bought it from Amazon and left a review. I didn't put this book really on Amazon to go wildly popular or whatever. It was just kind of wanted that option. So the reviews aren't critical. I'm not trying to like become some kind of name from this, but more reviews would be awesome. And if at any point you read the book and you feel that anything was left out, or if you have any questions, or if you want to be like, Allie, dude, that kind of sucked. Like, tell me. Like, I'm all for it. I really want to make resources that are helpful for you guys. So I will, on that note, I'm going to plan to sign off of here. So go buy the ebook if you want to. A quick note, I will probably not be able to do a live on Monday, September 30th. I will actually be flying back from the Baltimore fly-in by trip. If you missed all those details, check out the beginning of this recording. While I'm in Baltimore with the Berkeys, the 27th through the 29th, I will inevitably be going live. I'll for sure be taking videos because essentially, if you guys can't make it on the trip, I want you to see different stuff. Like I want to bring the tour to you type of thing. I don't know if that'll be lives and recorded videos or just recorded videos. I don't know. But regardless, for our usual Facebook Live Monday time, I cannot imagine that I'll be able to make it on Monday the 30th. If that changes, I'll let you know. And I might even, while I'm sitting in the airport, be able to do something because I think my flight leaves, I think it's at like 7 p.m. Eastern, which is like literally right at this time. So assume no Facebook Live Monday the 30th, but in exchange for that, you'll probably be getting lots of cool stuff over that weekend. Come on the tour with us. I'll try and if the developers are giving tons of good information, I'll just try and sit there and record it for you guys. I'm not super smart with technology. I'm shocked that I'm doing Facebook Lives and like managing it appropriately because I've just now kind of learned how to use my cell phone. Like it's bad. But I will be trying. I keep looking over here because my calendar's over here and the Facebook group is over here. So that's why I'm constantly kind of looking all over the place. But if in the meantime you guys keep sending questions, we will be here live again next Monday the 23rd. I cannot completely guarantee that my brain will be attached to my shoulders. I am going to a conference Thursday through Sunday of this weekend. It's called Grow, Thrive, Revive. And usually when I go to things like this, my brain is like off into the ethers at some point with ideas and cool stuff and whatever. So Monday will kind of be a recovery day for me, but we're totally going to do Facebook Live. And if I seem drunk on it, I'm probably not. I'm probably just tired and overly motivated from the weekend. I got so many little emoji things and they're delayed, so I don't know which part you guys are laughing, crying, and liking all at the same time. Okay, so Facebook Live on Monday the 23rd is on. Facebook Live on Monday the 30th is not on, but in exchange for that, you'll be getting lots of cool videos and stuff from Baltimore for the trip. Last call, if you guys want to come on this trip, please come see me. Plane tickets are cheap. It's going to be so fun. You have no idea how fun these trips are. And then Matt says, oh, yes, by the way, I'm so jealous of all your flying. I want my pilot's license so bad. So if any of you don't know, I do teach flying as like a fun side gig, and I have picked it up. That's part of why I'm half slurring when I do these things, because I'm so tired from now I'm flying planes during the day and doing all my normal stuff. And we just got a super rad, like nice multi-engine plane, and I am conveniently the only licensed multi-engine instructor at the school. I was like, oh, oh, I joke. I got so excited. Like, oh, shucks. I'm the only one who can teach in it. So super pumped for that. Like, I'm beyond excited. So Matt, if you're ever in LA, come out. We'll go flying. So if anyone is in LA or wants to go flying or whatever, so you don't have to be jealous. You can just come do it with me. Samuel just joined. Sorry, we're actually wrapping up, but the replay link will probably show up very soon. Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to say this. Rux Toy or Jeff? Is it just Jeff? Is it backwards? Hi back. Thanks for your time. You're very welcome, David. What school? I actually teach. Are you talking about flight school? I teach out of Proteus in Santa Monica. So if you guys are ever around, definitely come say hi or reach out. All right. And Matt says I'll take you up on it. Cool. We'll make a flying party, and maybe if this multi-engine thing works out, I'll just be able to fly us to all these old trips. So that's it for today. Again, thank you for joining. Keep your questions coming. Keep whatever you guys need. Let me know. Like I really want to give you guys what you want, and I don't always know what that is if I don't hear from you. So keep your questions coming and keep jumping on the lives. Thank you so much for all the support. Tell all your friends. And also one last thing, we are now putting these videos on YouTube. I guess it doesn't really matter for you guys because you can still access them in the group. But I don't know what the search terms are, but just turnkey rental properties or something. So tell your friends if they're not in the group, or if someone's not on Facebook, now they can get these videos on YouTube. And I'll try and find like a link for that. But Hipster has a YouTube site. So look for it there. And yeah. So Jonathan, Steve, thanks for joining. We're just wrapping up, but the replay link will be coming on. I think it only takes like 5 or 10 minutes or something. So definitely jump on. And then Matt, thanks again. Your advice helps so much. I'm super glad to hear that. I always hope that these are helpful. So you guys let me know if they're ever not. And on that note, I will sign off and we'll see you next Monday. All right, bye.